Welcome to AI World TV, your go-to destination for everything artificial intelligence. Discover the captivating landscape of AI, where advanced technology finds real-life application. Subscribe to AI World TV for webzine articles, reports, podcasts, videos, live events, and latest trends. Hear from top industry leaders and discover how AI is transforming industries and our daily lives.
So if I told you that the technology to power, like the entire AI revolution, endlessly with zero carbon, is sitting right beneath your feet.
Oh, and that the only people who actually know how to get to it are oil and gas executives.
Right. You'd probably think I was completely crazy. But that is exactly what's happening. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
We've got some really fascinating stuff to cover today.
We really do. We are unpacking some absolutely eye-opening research published just yesterday, May 10th, 2026, by Sydney Armani in the AI World Journal.
Yeah, the piece is all about how this historically overlooked, literally subterranean energy source is just suddenly emerging as the MVP of the modern digital economy.
Exactly. Because, for the last 10 years, the energy narrative for you, the consumer, was always about shrinking your footprint, right?
Right, doing more with less.
Yeah, buying those hyper-efficient LED light bulbs, upgrading to energy-saving appliances.
I mean, we were essentially trying to starve the grid's growth curve, just to give renewables some time to catch up. The whole overarching strategy was conservation.
But looking at Armani's data, it seems like that era is just abruptly over.
Oh, completely over. Because as nations are racing to decarbonize right now, the ultimate currency for the people managing our power grids, it isn't the flashiest tech.
And it isn't even necessarily the absolute cheapest power at any given hour.
Exactly. The ultimate currency now is reliability. They need power that just does not blink.
Which brings us to, the core problem here. We have this massive, honestly terrifying spike in electricity demand coming.
Oh, yeah. The projections in the article show U.S. electricity demand growing by up to 20% over the next decade.
A 20% jump.
Yeah.
On a grid that is already straining during summer heat waves.
Right. And this surge is definitely not being driven by household light bulbs.
No, not at all. It's driven by massive, incredibly energy-intensive industrial shifts, primarily, the explosion of generative AI.
Yeah, we often think of software as being weightless, right? Like it just exists in the cloud.
Right, the magical cloud.
But these hyperscale data centers are essentially just massive factories of computation. I mean, when you train a large language model, you are running tens of thousands of specialized processors at maximum capacity for months at a time.
Wow.
And every single time a user prompts an AI to generate an image or write some code, it requires a burst of compute. And all of that processing generates an immense amount of heat.
So you aren't just paying to power the computers themselves, you're paying this massive energy tax just to core them down.
Exactly. A single hyperscale facility can require as much electricity as a small city.
But AI is just the tip of the spear here, isn't it?
Yeah, because at the exact same time that data centers are draining the grid, we are plugging millions of electric cars into it.
Right. Every time a driver switches from a combustion engine to an EV, they take the energy demand that used to be met by a gas pump.
And they transfer it directly onto the electrical grid.
And then you add the push to bring heavy manufacturing back domestically.
Especially green technologies.
Right, like batteries and solar panels, which actually require immense amounts of steady heat and electricity to produce. Basically a perfect storm.
It really is. The grid was historically built for these predictable daily peaks. Like when everyone gets home from work and turns on the television.
Yeah.
But now that peak is becoming this flat, elevated plateau that just never drops.
Hold on, because I think a lot of people listening are probably wondering the exact same thing I was when I started looking into this.
Which is?
Well, if we need a green grid and we need all this power, why can't we just, coat the deserts in solar panels and build more offshore wind turbines? Why are we suddenly looking underground?
That is the big question. And it comes down to the fundamental flaw of surface-level renewables, which is weather dependency.
Grid operators call it the intermittency problem, right?
Exactly. Solar panels obviously go dormant at night.
Which is precisely when residential demand often stays very high.
Yeah. Right. And wind turbines stall when the weather is calm. And unfortunately, wind lulls frequently happen during extreme temperature events, like a massive heat wave or a deep freeze.
Which is exactly when everyone is blasting their air conditioning or heating to survive.
Right.
I mean, you could build massive lithium-ion battery farms to store the solar power from the day, couldn't you?
You could, but storing enough energy to power an entire city through a 3-day cloudy, windless stretch is currently cost prohibitive. It's just too expensive.
Which is where geothermal energy enters the picture as the ultimate baseline solution.
Yeah, geothermal provides what grid operators call firm power. It runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It doesn't care if a hurricane is blowing overhead.
Or if it's the dead of night. And it needs no fuel supply chains. Unlike natural gas or coal, you don't need trains or pipelines delivering fuel to a geothermal plant.
And it completely avoids geopolitical price spikes. Like, you don't have to worry about a global conflict shutting down the geothermal heat radiating right beneath your feet.
Exactly. And the contrast in performance metrics is what really blew my mind in the article.
Oh, the capacity factor thing.
Yeah. So grid operators use this metric called capacity factor. It's a measure of how often a power plant is running at its absolute maximum potential.
Okay.
Solar generally sits around a 25% capacity factor. Wind is at about 35%. Geothermal has a capacity factor of over 90%.
Wow. Over 90%.
Yeah, it's comparable to a nuclear power plant.
So for every 1 hour a solar panel works at full capacity, a geothermal plant works for almost 4.
Basically, yeah.
So, okay, if this energy is basically a flawless, constantly running zero-carbon engine, why on earth are we currently getting less than 1% of our total utility-scale electricity generation in the U.S. from it? What's the catch?
Well, historically, geothermal energy was geographically trapped. It was entirely reliant on nature's lottery.
How so?
So the fundamental science of the planet is that the Earth gets roughly 25 degrees Celsius hotter for every kilometer you go down. The heat is everywhere, under all of us.
Right.
But to access it conventionally, you needed a very specific, rare combination of geological features. You needed a natural underground reservoir of hot water or steam.
Okay.
You needed existing rock fractures to allow that water to flow. And you needed natural permeability so the heat could actually circulate back to the surface.
And those three conditions almost exclusively align along tectonic plate boundaries, don't they?
Exactly. It's why, historically, large-scale geothermal was limited to places like Iceland or, the geysers in Northern California.
So you couldn't just drop a conventional geothermal plant in Ohio or New York and expect it to work.
Right, because even though the heat is down there, the water and the fractures aren't.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because this is the exact bottleneck that a new technology called Enhanced Geothermal Systems, or EGS, is completely shattering.
Yeah, EGS is a total game changer. We aren't waiting around to find a natural hot spring anymore.
With EGS, engineers are drilling 10,000 feet or more straight down into solid rock.
Right, they're targeting depths where the temperature consistently reaches 400 degrees Fahrenheit.
And because there's no natural water or permeability at that depth, the engineers just create it.
Exactly. They inject cold water deep underground at very high pressures to create artificial pathways in the hot, dry rock.
So think of it like a massive subterranean radiator. You push cold water down one pipe, you let the Earth's natural infinite oven superheat that water as it travels through those tiny new fractures.
And then you pull the resulting high-pressure steam up a second pipe to spin a turbine on the surface.
You're essentially turning the Earth's crust into a closed-loop boiler.
Right. And because you are creating the conditions artificially, EGS makes geothermal geographically agnostic. You do not need a volcano.
You just need to drill deep enough.
Exactly. This takes a resource that used to be gigawatt scale, capable of powering a few lucky regions, and transforms it into a terawatt scale resource.
Capable of powering the entire country indefinitely.
Indefinitely.
But, okay, let's address the elephant in the room here. Drilling 10,000 feet down isn't exactly like drilling a water well in your backyard.
No, definitely not.
We are talking about boring through incredibly dense, abrasive granite. It sounds prohibitively expensive and time-consuming. How are we suddenly able to do this efficiently enough to power an AI boom without bankrupting the operators?
Well, this is where the unlikely hero comes in. It's through a massive cross-pollination of talent and technology.
You are listening to the AI World Podcast, your trusted source for the latest innovations, insights, and trends in artificial intelligence, blockchain, fintech, and decentralized technologies. Each episode features expert interviews, engaging discussions, and in-depth analysis of how AI transforms industries worldwide. Stay ahead of the curve with the latest articles and exclusive reports from the AI World Journal. covering everything from emerging technologies to industry breakthroughs. For more news, global events, and access to AI World Society circle gatherings, visit us at aiworld.tv. Don't forget to subscribe to stay informed, stay connected, and be part of the AI revolution with AI World Lounge. Thank you for listening.
Coming directly from the oil and gas sector.
Wow.
Yeah, the petroleum industry has spent the last 50 years perfecting the art of drilling deep, fast, and accurately through hard rock to extract fossil fuels.
And now that exact expertise is being redeployed to build clean energy.
What's fascinating here is the irony of it, right? The very industry that drove fossil fuel extraction is providing the exact technological bridge needed for a carbon-free baseload.
Okay, but wait. Drilling for oil usually involves sedimentary rock, right? Like sandstone or limestone, which is relatively soft. Geothermal targets igneous and metamorphic rock, like granite. So if you use a standard oil drill bit on 400-degree granite, the bit is just going to melt or shatter in hours.
And that was the hurdle for a long time, because every time a drill bit breaks, you have to stop drilling.
Oh, man.
You have to pull 10,000 feet of heavy steel pipe out of the hole, replace the bit, and then thread all that pipe back down.
That sounds miserable.
It's called tripping pipe, and it wastes days of expensive rig time. But the oil industry has recently developed specialized high-temperature materials and synthetic diamond drill bits specifically designed to withstand extreme environments.
Okay.
And more importantly, they brought a technology called logging while drilling over to geothermal.
Okay, explain logging while drilling, because it sounds like you're just writing down measurements on a clipboard, but it's actually way more complex than that.
Way more complex. So imagine trying to steer a drill bit that is 2 miles underground, completely blind.
Yeah, impossible.
Historically, you drill blindly for a while, stop, lower a sensor down the hole on a wire to see where you were and what the rock was like, pull the sensor back up, and then resume drilling.
That sounds painfully slow.
It was, but logging while drilling builds incredibly robust sensors directly into the drill string just behind the bit.
But how do the sensors send the data back up to the surface if they are 2 miles underground under massive pressure? I mean, Wi-Fi obviously doesn't work through solid granite.
No, it doesn't. They use something called mud pulse telemetry.
Okay, what is that?
So the drill bit generates precise pressure waves in the drilling fluid, the mud that constantly circulates down the hole to clear away rock cuttings.
Oh, wow.
It sends data to the surface through the fluid, basically like Morse code.
That is wild.
Yeah, so the engineers on the surface get real-time, continuous data on the rock composition, temperature, and direction.
Allowing them to steer the drill bit dynamically without ever stopping.
Exactly. Applying these advanced oil and gas techniques has drastically lowered the cost and the time it takes to drill an EGS well.
And there's another brilliant logistical maneuver happening here, too. The article mentions that building a power plant from scratch requires land acquisition, environmental reviews, and building completely new infrastructure to connect to the grid.
Right, the interconnection queue.
Yeah, the current wait time to connect a new power plant to the U.S. grid can take up to 5 years. It is a massive bottleneck.
Which is why developers are utilizing what they call brownfield development.
Right.
Instead of starting from scratch in a pristine field, they are purchasing inactive, depleted oil and gas wells. They just convert these sunk-cost assets into geothermal heaters.
Oh, that's smart.
Or in some active oil fields, massive amounts of scalding hot water are naturally pumped to the surface alongside the oil.
And historically, that water was just treated as a nuisance byproduct.
Exactly. But now they're capturing that heat to generate zero-carbon electricity right on site.
Does this mean we can basically just skip the line? Because you completely bypass that interconnection queue?
You do.
The transmission lines already exist at these old fossil fuel sites. By repurposing this infrastructure, the article mentions you cut deployment timelines by 12 to 18 months minimum.
Yeah, you give fossil fuel infrastructure a second life as a zero-carbon asset. But, you know, the speed of this transition is ultimately dictated by capital.
Right. Transitioning a grid requires an astronomical amount of money.
It does. But since 2021, advanced geothermal technologies have attracted over $1.5 billion in private investment.
And a huge chunk of that is coming from the tech giants, right? Microsoft, Google, Amazon.
Yeah, they are desperate for carbon-free power that doesn't flicker. They've pledged to become carbon negative, but their AI ambitions require more electricity than ever.
So they are stepping up and signing direct power purchase agreements or PPAs with these early-stage geothermal developers.
Right. A PPA is essentially a financial guarantee. The tech company agrees to buy every single megawatt of electricity the geothermal well produces at a set price for the next 10 or 20 years.
Wow. That contract allows the geothermal developer to go to a bank, prove they have a guaranteed customer, and get the massive loans required to actually drill the multi-million-dollar wells.
Exactly. The tech industry is essentially acting as the financial catalyst here.
And because of this influx of cash, early commercial-scale EGS deployments are being targeted by 2027. We're talking about next year.
Next year. Projects in Nevada, Oregon, and Utah are already proving the concept at scale.
And the financial projections indicate that within the decade, as drilling speeds continue to accelerate, EGS will reach cost parity with natural gas peaker plants.
Plus, the innovation pipeline is heavily funded. We aren't just relying on better diamond drill bits. We're seeing major investment in non-contact drilling technologies.
Oh, like plasma drilling.
Yeah, plasma drilling, which uses high-voltage electrical pulses to blast the rock apart.
Yeah.
And millimeter wave drilling.
Millimeter wave drilling feels straight out of science fiction. Instead of using a physical mechanical drill bit that grinds against the rock, wears down, and eventually breaks, they use a device called a gyrotron.
Right. It just beams highly concentrated, directed electromagnetic energy microwaves down the hole to literally melt and vaporize the rock in front of it.
It's incredible. Because nothing physical is touching the rock, there is no drill bit to wear out. You literally never have to stop to replace it.
So if millimeter wave drilling scales commercially, the cost of reaching ultra-deep, super hot rock just drops exponentially.
Completely changing the economic math of geothermal.
There's one final advantage to geothermal that I think makes it the ultimate deployment winner, and it actually has nothing to do with subsurface engineering. It's all about the surface footprint.
The NEMBUI problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not in my backyard. People generally support the idea of clean energy, but nobody wants to live next to an industrial power facility.
And the physical footprint of traditional renewables often triggers intense local opposition. I mean, a utility-scale solar farm requires thousands of acres of land, fundamentally altering the landscape. Right. And wind turbines are hundreds of feet tall, visually dominant for miles, and they create noise. Community lawsuits and zoning battles routinely delay solar and wind projects for years.
But geothermal completely bypasses that NIMBY roadblock.
Yeah, the article highlights how a single geothermal well can produce megawatts of continuous baseload power from a physical footprint no larger than a standard suburban driveway.
Right, because once the drilling rig leaves, the operating equipment sits low to the ground. It operates silently, you don't see it, and you don't hear it.
That combination, incredibly high energy density paired with a microscopic surface footprint, means you can place a geothermal power plant almost anywhere.
You can put it right next to a dense industrial park.
Or drop it directly into the parking lot of an energy-hungry AI data center, entirely eliminating the need to build miles of expensive new high-voltage transmission lines to bring the power in from some remote desert.
Exactly. And according to energy modelers, achieving the global goal of net zero by 2050 is mathematically impossible without this exact kind of firm, high-density, scalable, clean energy.
You simply cannot power an advanced, electrified, AI-driven global economy solely on energy sources that go to sleep when the sun goes down.
You can't. Geothermal is rapidly evolving from a niche geological curiosity into the silent 24/7 workhorse of the grid.
It really is.
It truly offers the holy grail of energy generation. The cleanliness and infinite nature of renewables paired with the relentless, unyielding reliability of fossil fuels. And for you, listening, the relevance of this shift impacts your daily life.
It does.
Every time you use a generative AI tool to draft a document, every time you stream a movie from a cloud server, or every time you see a new electric vehicle on the highway, you are interacting with a system that increasingly requires this hidden giant beneath our feet to function.
Which leaves me with a final provocative question to ponder based on the text. The article points out how EGS and future tech, like plasma drilling, make this energy source geographically agnostic.
Right. Limitless heat is accessible anywhere on the planet if you can just drill deep enough.
Exactly. So if this technology scales globally, the way it is projected to over the next 2 decades, what happens to the world's geopolitical landscape?
Oh, that's a huge question.
What happens to global power dynamics when every single country on Earth, regardless of their climate or natural resources, can suddenly tap into limitless domestic 24/7 power right beneath their own feet? What happens when no nation ever needs to import fuel again? Something to think about.
The future of artificial intelligence is unfolding, and it's happening at AI World Week, the flagship global event for innovation, collaboration, and transformation. This flagship global AI event is designed to connect visionary leaders, trailblazing entrepreneurs, and influential thinkers to explore the endless possibilities of AI. Experience groundbreaking technology that redefines industries and inspires progress. Join thought-provoking discussions on ethical AI, digital equity, and the transformative role of technology in our world. Build meaningful connections that catalyze innovation and drive impact. AI World Week is powered by AI World Society, a global movement dedicated to advancing AI responsibly and ensuring it serves humanity. Together, we're shaping a smarter, more inclusive, and equitable future. Continue your journey beyond the event with the AI World Journal, offering expert insights, in-depth analysis, and the latest trends shaping the AI landscape. This is your opportunity to lead, to innovate, and to transform the world with AI. AI World Week. We invite you to join us and embrace the AI revolution.